Okay, on this training video, I want to talk to you about proofreading and why we do it and why it's so important. So there's a number of reasons why we do proofreading. Main reason is we want to ensure all mistakes are minimised. My philosophy on mistakes is I don't mind who picks it up, whether it's yourself, your team leader, someone else in the team, our proofreader, all the clients, as long as it doesn't actually go out. So if it actually goes out and it gets printed or put on Facebook or sent in an email and there's a mistake on it, that's kind of where it doesn't make us look very good, really. And also because our clients are quite dominant, and if you've had a look at the Who Are Our Clients training, then you'll know that a lot of our clients are lions and they don't like mistakes. Okay, another reason why we proofread is to ensure your team leader knows what's happening. You know, if you're sort of dealing directly with a client, your team leader may or may not know what's going on with that client. So if you've had the conversation and the client's asked you to do something, your team leader may not necessarily know about that. So if you then put that down in a document which is then proofread, your team leader knows what's happening with that client. I've explained about ensuring no mistakes go out to the public and why we do that, and ensuring the message is overall correct. So sometimes there may be no spelling mistakes or no grammatical errors in it, but the message might not be right, the tone may not be right, and your team leader will have more experience in that, so they'll be able to help you with that, and they'll know the client as well, so they'll be able to tell you what the client is like and what their tone should be like. So that's why we do proofreading. So how do we do it then? Okay, here's the overall process. So first thing, whenever you create a document, be it an email, a blog, a social media, newsletter, press release, and so on, the list goes on, that's not exhaustive. The first thing that you do is print it out. Now, it's really important that you do print it out rather than reading it on the screen. It's really easy to miss mistakes and grammatical errors on the screen because we skip read as we're reading. So the first thing is I want you to print it out yourself and have a read through it. It's important that you read through it first because you know the document, you know what's being asked, and actually when you read through it you will find mistakes yourself, so you can make those amendments before it then gets checked by someone else. So once you've checked it and you're happy with it, the next step is to fill in the proofreading checklist, which we'll talk about in a second. It looks like this, but we'll come in that in a second. And then give it to another member of the team to check. If it's got a design element on it, so if it's a MailChimp or it's a Facebook campaign or something like that, it's important to get one of the design people to check. So that's either Nick or Laura, so they can have a look at it from a design point of view. But someone else can check it from the team, as long as they're level 2 or 3 or above and they've had some proofreading training. They can check the design, the spelling and grammatical errors. However, they won't always be able to check the message, so it's important that your team leader has a look at it at this stage as well to make sure they're happy with it. And then it goes to a senior proofreader's check. So that's myself or Nikki at the moment. That may change in the future, obviously, but it's important that it goes through that person to check as well. So there's quite a lot of checks that we do internally, and the reason for that is we're trying to minimise those mistakes. Once you're happy with it, it then goes over to our proofreader. Now we have got a professionally qualified proofreader that checks everything, who's called Petra, and she looks after everything and checks that we all haven't made any other mistakes or anything like that. And she'll check the document, and she will also give you any feedback or tell you anything that needs to be amended. If anything comes back from Petra to say that it needs to be amended, it's important that your team leader checks any amendments and checks that they've been made. So what I would do then is give them what the proofreader's amendments are, and then just go through it with the team leader to just check that that's correct. Then the client checks it. So the reason why we do this is because overall the client knows their business, or they should know their business, so they should do a final overall check, and they should check images, they should check links, and it's important to kind of stress those things to them just to make sure they're finally happy. So as you can see there, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 checks before it goes out, so there shouldn't be any mistakes, and that process minimises them. But we have a final check, and that is if it's being set up on Facebook, if it's being set up on Hootsuite, if it's being set up on MailChimp or another email system, the team leader should do a final check before it goes out to make sure it's the right list, make sure it's the right heading, make sure nothing's been missed. Okay, so that's our process, and it's really, really important that it's followed. Mistakes have happened here, and they have gone out to clients, and it's embarrassing, not only for the client, but also for you as well, and you will really feel it if a mistake is made. Okay, so let me talk you through the proofing checklist. We have a checklist that's been created. At the top here, we have just to walk you through from top to bottom. So you have first copy, second copy, and third copy. So the first one is you put yourself as the author, and then you put who the proofreader in the team is, who the proofreader is as a senior person, and proofreader final, which is probably going to be Petra. And then obviously we've got up to 3 copies there that can be amended and changed as necessary. On the then you underneath that you've got the client name, design, and dates that they were approved by. Underneath that you've got the document type. So you tick there whether it's a newsletter, email, website, and so on and so forth. And then underneath that we have a design checklist. So this is what a designer should be checking, but it's also you can also check it from a general point of view as well. So your person 1, the P1, P2 and P3 are the people. So your person 1, so go down there and check in with yourself to say, is it on brief? Does it grab interest? Is there consistent branding? Is there a good call to action? Is it balanced? And then pass it on to the team and the designer if necessary, and they should check things like all those things, but also layout, whether the font's readable, colours, headings, subtitles, etc. And then on the right hand side we've got the content to be checked. So you yourself should be checking spelling, grammar, headings, call to action, general copywriting. You should also be checking for consistency, so fonts, colours, images. And then you should also be checking things like email addresses and address of the client and numbers and things like that. Now, don't skip that part because mistakes have been made on email addresses. You know, admin's been spelt wrong, so the email address may be admin at abccompany.co.uk, and we've had instances where admin's been spelt wrong, so don't skip out on these details. Even if you know the telephone number backwards, go and check the website to make sure it is correct. So you will take person 1 for those things, and then when you hand it to the relevant team member, they will take person 2. Your senior person will take person 3, and then it's okay to go to Petra. So that's how the proofing checklist works. Okay, so what to check? You need to check, and your team leader and whoever else is reading it needs to check the message. You need to check for the layouts, fonts and design. You need to check for spelling, content and grammar, contact details and the spelling of those, subject lines and links. Now I can tell you now that the smallest ones are the always ones that are going to catch you out. So headings, subject lines, things like that may catch you out. So overall you're checking for the message. Is it on track? Is it what you want to achieve from that? You're checking for consistency and making sure the layout, the fonts and design are correct. You're checking the content, the spelling and the grammar of that. Subject lines, any links, and checking that they work. It's the worst mistake in the world to kind of put, you're going to add the link later and then the link is wrong. So, you know, it's worth putting your link in the first draft so someone can check it for you. Okay, so that's for bigger items and things that are going to go out to the public. What about smaller items, things like email updates? Now, what I always say to people is it's always better to check before you send it. Once it's sent, you can't get it back. So really you want to get it checked by a team leader before it's sent out, and no emails really should be going out unless they are checked with the team leader. But ideally it should be your team leader or someone on your team that knows the client, because what's going to happen if you ask another team leader to check it is they're going to say, yep, it looks fine to me, but the message may be wrong, or you might not be saying the right thing, and it's only really someone on your team who knows the client is going to be able to spot those things. So ideally it should be team leader or someone on your team who knows your client, who checks it for you. What about amendments from clients? So as I said at the beginning of this, sometimes you'll get a phone call from a client who has an amendment to something and wants you to make those amendments, but your team leader or someone else on your team may have not heard the phone call. So how do we check things like that? So if you get an amendment from a client by email, what I would do is print out the email of the new version that you've created and print out the amendments from the client, and then go through it with your team leader to ensure all the points have been done, and then it goes back through the proofing process. If you receive an amendment by phone, write down the notes from the call and then listen to the recording to ensure that you haven't missed anything. So we've got training on downloading the calls in here, so you can download that if you haven't already done that training, and find out how to download the call. It's worth listening back onto things because sometimes you'll miss things. And then print out the amendments and go through it again with your team leader to ensure all the points have been done, and then send it back through the proofing process. So that is how to proof. And I'm just going to go through that again. So you check it first. The team, one of the other team checks it, and if it's a design, if there is some design in there, one of the design team needs to check it, and then a senior checker needs to check it. So at the moment, that's me or Nikki. Then it needs to go to our proofreader, and then any amendments that come back, the team leader needs to check that those amendments have been put into place. The client then checks it, and again, if they make any amendments, your team leader needs to go through those amendments with you to check that nothing's been missed. And then finally, just before you press the send button or you post it on Facebook, your team leader needs to just double check it with you to make sure it's okay before it goes out. Okay, so that's our proofreading process. It's really, really important that you follow it. So any questions, please ask your team leader, and I hope this training has been helpful.